For those of you who were challenged by last month's theme of chant, it's over. The theme for the month of October is creative expression, and that is all-encompassing. There's so many things that I'm excited to be able to share with you for this month. Creative expression is a very necessary part of our spiritual practice, and it's something that we each do individually, and some of it we do collectively, but most the way in which we express is on an individual level. Today we will be talking about developing perspective, and that brought up a whole lot of things for me. Ernest Holmes was a master at this idea of developing perspective, because he didn't see anything beyond the God essence in anyone or anything. And when I was first in this teaching, that was such a lofty ideal to try and live up to not look at a person's behavior, or not pay attention to things that were happening at the level of effect. Ernest Holmes was an absolutist when it came to dealing with life at the level of effect, and for him it was sort of a no-brainer, if you will. If we could do better, we would do better. I think that's the whole point of this. So his ideal was to educate everyone in the ways of having a deeper and more defined relationship with God. And by doing that, then we could, by right of consciousness, be able to see the God essence in everyone. Perspective. What does the word mean? Well, according to the dictionary, it means outlook, viewpoint, point of view, and or perception. And perception's an interesting word because it gets us into trouble a whole lot of times, doesn't it? I've been toying with the idea lately that it sort of seems to work for me as to why some of us demonstrate certain desires in our lives and why others do not. This is definitely my perspective, but you might see yourself in this a little bit today as well. I believe that to some extent we are trapped in our concepts, and that some that serve us and others that do not. And some of these are long-held belief systems that have long since outlived their usefulness in our lives. Ernest Holmes said, arguments logically presented to mind will produce definite results. Arguments logically presented to mind will produce definite results. It means that we're surrounded by a universal mind or God energy, which is creative, which receives the impress of our thought and acts upon it. That's the simplest definition of the science of mind. We are surrounded by a universal mind or God energy, which is creative, which receives the impress of our thought and acts upon it. So it would seem that every time I have a thought about demonstrating money in my life, or improved health condition, or a new relationship, or a greater and better paying job, the universe receives that thought and immediately acts upon it. You'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd think that that would be the logical consequence of this. Bill Hybels, who has a mega church, I think in the outskirts of Chicago somewhere, said recently in a talk I listened to that there are 4 sounds that people make when confronted with a new idea. The first one is a gasp. You can't do that. The second one is, uh-oh. What have I done? How many of us have gone there? Yes. The second one is, phew. I can see it coming together, kind of. And then the fourth one is, ooh. That sound of joyful completion. So as you move through life, you can see yourself in all those different sounds that we make. There are, however, certain criteria that need to be presented along with the idea that we have. My desire must include a consciousness of wholeness. That's number one. Of peace, of power, and of perfection. Otherwise, there's a darn good chance that my desires will not be fulfilled. We've seen time and time again people who consistently demonstrate according to their current needs. And I know for most of us in this teaching, we've all done this ourselves. I have an immediate response to a current need. Everything's taken care of until the next one comes along. I mean, certain people in this philosophy regularly demonstrate money to pay their rent, for instance. However, when the following month comes around, the rent is due once again, and they're in the same position all over again. It's a repeated pattern of behavior. It has not gotten to that level of consciousness yet where we really want to see ourselves in our ideas of how this philosophy works. There are folks in our movement who go out and give seminars on prosperity, and yet they do not themselves seem to demonstrate the necessary good to change their own lives. So what's up with that? What's up with that limited belief system, if you will? The same goes for relationships. Many people have no trouble bringing new men and new women into their lives, but those new men or women leave just as quickly as they came. As to health issues or challenges, many people have momentary reprieve from their ills, but the same problem seems to keep cropping up time and time again. So why would that be, do you think? Well, when we make statements that God is all there is, our argument must support that statement by strong mental proof that God is all there is and there is nothing else. Now, Ernest says that we must know that both cause and effect are spiritual. And our argument or discussion with ourselves should tend to demonstrate this position in our own thought. We're arguing with ourselves constantly, aren't we? We're having a discussion in our head. Gratefully, most of what goes on in my head doesn't get said out loud. However, I do have a tendency to what's on my mind is on my mouth. And that may be perceived sometimes as harshness, but I don't mean it to be like that. Whatever we demonstrate in our own thought is logically presented to mind to be acted upon and projected into form. This is the whole concept of this teaching. The thing is, as soon as we have ideas that are unfamiliar and seemingly impossible to achieve, transformation is actually beginning to take place. We couldn't have had the idea without the possibility of implementation. That's not the way this works. So if I have an idea that I want to change something in my life, there is the solution already in place for that change to happen in my life. Here's my perspective on this. There are two types of demonstrations. The first one is an ego-centered demonstration, and the other one is a consciousness-centered demonstration. Now, this is something I've been toying with for the last little while, because it's a bit of a conundrum when a person comes back to me time and time again for the same problem that they're experiencing in their life. An ego-centered demonstration is presented as, look what I did. Look what I demonstrated. Look at me. I know that you know what I'm talking about. When someone shares in class at this level, it feels a little like a bragging episode, if you will. Look at me and what my ego did. Look how special I am. I've gone there myself on occasion. A consciousness-centered demonstration is conveyed in this way. Look what God did by means of me. Look how God has shown itself in my life through the good that I have received. There's a whole different energy around it, isn't there? An ego-centered demonstration comes from the perspective that I of myself can do this. And yes, this is true to some extent, but I must keep doing it over and over and over and over again in order for me to see the demonstration in my life. A consciousness-centered demonstration comes from the perspective that I have changed my thinking, up-leveled my receptivity quotient, and I cannot stop my good from coming to me because I am in the divine flow of God's good. That's what a consciousness demonstration is about. In the ego-centered demonstration, I get the job, but I'm unable to keep it. I get a short-term relationship, but discover the person is simply the same as my last one in a different costume. I feel better physically in one area of my body, but something else breaks down, and it's temporary at best. In a consciousness-centered demonstration, there is the right and perfect mate forever and ever. My life's purpose and passion is wrapped up in the new job. I feel healthy and vital through and through, and it's a permanent healing in all these areas. That's what a consciousness demonstration is. An ego-centered demonstration is temporary and a one-time thing. A consciousness demonstration is permanent and cumulative. Creative mind in and of itself has no specific intention as far as we as individuals are concerned. God doesn't have an intention for me. I give it intention. We give it intention. You give it intention. That's what we're here to do, to individualize the idea of an unlimited and abundant and prosperous and loving and generous God. We give it the only intention it has for us. It works for us by working through us. Some of you who are in first-year class have probably heard this over and over again in the last couple of weeks. Actually, if we find ourselves in confusion and limited circumstances, instead of disproving this theory, it is actually positive negative proof of the theory. I know that sounds a little convoluted, but that's really what Ernest Holmes would say to us. Our limitation and lack of experience of life is a direct result of nothing other than confused thinking. Confused thinking. Here we are on bended knee, pleading with God to please help me find my way. And God is up there or out there or wherever God is saying, Maureen, please help me. Tell me what it is you desire. Oh. You know, we have it all wrong in that area. If I don't set an intention for what I want in life, God cannot do its job by means of me. It's just that simple. It is so simple. Uncertain circumstances come from ego-centered personal priorities and are a direct result of confused thinking. This is truly living life from default. Defined and designed life experiences come from consciousness-centered priorities and are a result of intentional thinking. Intentional thinking gets us where we need to go in life. When we start with the proposition of the allness of God, working in our lives for good, and a very creative expression, we, by right of consciousness, are aware of God as the only power. We are then able to present to mind the desired intention as not only a possibility, but a probability. And then we will see definite changes taking place at the level of effect. But first, they have to take place in my thinking. Ernest Holmes says that until we can demonstrate the truth so completely that we can never again be shaken in our conviction about it, we shouldn't even be talking to anyone about our beliefs. And we yammer on. We yammer about what we think we believe and not what we feel at a very in-depth heart level. If you hear yourself saying, I think, you're still up here. It hasn't made that 18-inch journey from the head to the heart. I feel this. If there's a smidgen of doubt, the conviction is not there. And to give it power by talking about it just exacerbates the situation even more. Let me tell you, I've had doubts in the past little bit. There There's much conversation being bandied about that our downsizing here at the center is a bad thing and that I'm personally responsible for it. I don't tell you this to elicit a sympathetic response from you, because I got this handled. Almost $12,000 a month in rent is a tough nut to crack. I have to tell you. I was at a ministers' conference down in San Clemente this week, and the prevailing conversation I had with people is that CSL Westlake is on the verge of collapse. Where that rumor gets started, I don't know. We have a Bush Telegraph in the ministerial corps that is just unbelievable. It's wonderful to have people come up to you at a ministers' convention and say, "Oh, Maureen, oh, you poor thing, what you must be going through." And what are they talking about? And then it comes down to the fact that the rumor mill has started to work in earnest, no pun intended. Where those rumors come from, I do not know. And who would want to perpetuate them is an even greater conundrum. You know, why the question I wonder sometimes is why we're so much more interested in what's negative than we are in what's positive. We are not on the verge of collapse. We are reorganizing to better work within our means. We're speaking to the universe. We're setting an intention to the universe that we are willing to give up the albatross-like hold our monthly rent has on us and manage our money more effectively. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. And I should get an amen for that, I think. Yeah, yeah. Ernest Holmes says that when we're in confusion, our power dissipates. It's scattered. And we can't move forward. He says it's as though there are cracks in our mind through which our conviction oozes. Get that as a visual. You know, when I feel scattered about anything in my life, the conviction I have about the truth of my being, it's like it just seeps through those little cracks. And I have to do something to repair those cracks. When I read that statement, I felt vindicated in many ways because I had been letting my conviction ooze through the cracks of my mind. It's all perspective. My intellect and ego argued that our downsizing proved that I wasn't doing my job properly. My heart says that this is the right thing to do, and it will free us to concentrate on demonstrating a consciousness of wealth and vitality at this center. That's where we're going with this. The intellect always argues, but the spirit knows. The spirit knows, and that's the place that we want to get to when we're looking to demonstrate something in our life. That knowing, that inner conviction. The intellect examines. The spirit has absolutely no opinions whatsoever. Ernest said, this is why Jesus likened the kingdom of heaven to a child. For a child expects his needs to be met. When the child asks his mother for a drink of water, he expects a drink of water, and he would be the most surprised person in the world if he did not receive it immediately. You know, it's the nature of creative mind to respond to us, to give us what we ask for when we ask it, and in the way in which we ask it, and also, I might add, in the way in which we are most apt to receive it. That's the other criteria for this. What is my receptivity to what God has in store for me? So from this place of the absolute childlike acceptance, the kingdom of heaven is at hand for this wonderful center and all the people in it. We let go of the mental images which no longer serve us or which we dislike, and make welcome that which is most clearly meeting our heart's desires. That's what we're here to do. We're here to make it welcome. Our downsizing is a consciousness demonstration, and it will afford us, pun intended, the board and me, the opportunity to do our job better without the constant worry about where the money is going to come from to meet our overhead. That's really the bottom line. It's just a different perspective and a healthy way to look at the life of CSL Westlake. If anyone out there on the live stream today wants to throw a couple $100,000 our way, we'd be most appreciative. Anyone here as well, the same thing. And it's, it's honestly less about the money and more about the right thing to do, so that we can be good stewards of the church's money. I am beginning to understand that life is so much bigger than the philosophy that attempts to explain it. Even the words that I'm sharing with you this morning feel limiting in some respects, because what's in my heart is very difficult to share. I had a moment with Chris Short this morning, and what I realized is we're on the brink of something really big at CSL Westlake. And what I know is that the people who are here today are here for soul growth. If people are coming to our center, as a kind of like winning the lotto, if you will. You're here as a sort of a get-rich-quick scheme, as Ernest Holmes would have called it. He said maybe now it's time to really dig deeper and to find out what the intention is back of our attendance here. Why do we come here on a weekly basis? What is it that we get from being here on a Sunday morning that we can't perhaps get at the Catholic Church or the Presbyterian Church or wherever it is that we grew up in our religion of origin? I do understand that we have set an intention to creatively express on a smaller scale space-wise, but in a more fulfilling and life-affirming way spiritually, knowing that with God, all things are possible. Yay. Yay. All righty. So will you join me in consciousness, please, this morning? And today, listen, please, carefully, because I'm setting an intention for all of us today. That as I know and recognize that the creative energy of the universe is right here, right now, operating through me as an individual, I know that that creative energy is also operating through us collectively as a center. And that as we move forward in consciousness, we do so knowing that change takes place when it's time for change to take place, and not a moment before. That as we have set the desired outcome and set the intention for this center to be a prosperous, effective spiritual community in the greater Conejo Valley community, we have begun the process through our own individualized expression. I know today that creating a different perspective means that my point of view is just simply adjusted. And I'm in that place of, ooh, look what we've created. Look what we have created here. That our center is truly a beacon of light in this community. And the change that we are is the change that we want to see. We are the leaders we've been looking for. We are the ones to carry the torch of the science of mind out into the world in a grander and more expansive way. And so I know today that I am here in consciousness, fully and completely able, willing to carry the torch for this center as its spiritual leader. I know that as spiritual leaders, individualized members of this congregation are also willing to carry the torch for this center. And to know that as we create something beautiful, something more wonderful than we ever dreamed possible, it is because we are here by right of consciousness to fulfill an intention that has far, far-reaching results. And so today I know this to be the truth. I accept this as the truth. I let it be our truth as we joyfully say together, And so it is.